Hey guys, I'm super excited about this session with DanRussell, who's the founder of Vivid Labs. In this session, Dan is going to teach us how to stop building funnels and start testing instead. You're going to learn why most virtual businesses fail to scale and how to avoid the same pitfalls, the best place to get creative, out of the box marketing ideas that match your style, and you'll also learn how the scientific method is the only tool available that can guarantee marketing results. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, Dan, thank you so much for being here with us today.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Dan and I are going to talk about something that probably has everybody like crawling in their skin or breaking out in cold sweats. It's the word that you hear like all the time, but people don't know what it is or why they need one or what they should do about it. It's funnels. Funnels, I think, and I'm sure this is your industry, so you know how people feel about funnels, but why don't you walk us through just like what actually is a funnel? Let's start with like the basics.
Yeah. Well, I was actually chatting with somebody the other day that about the very fact that people that hear the word funnel and they're like, a funnel can solve all my problems. And I threw a joke out there, like if you have a gash in your leg, all you need is a funnel. Like it's almost, there's a little bit of truth to that statement because you hear this word as sort of like the solution to
Yeah.
all of your marketing problems, when in reality it's simply a strategy. It's a word that describes a strategy that you can use to generate leads and sales online. So a funnel itself is a series of steps that somebody will take in engaging with your company, starting with a simple step and ending with a transaction. And typically a funnel, is thought of as being the widest at the top and getting narrower as you go down. And we'll use that general metaphor to describe a funnel in this conversation. Top of the funnel is the widest. This is where the most people come in, and this is typically where you would give something away for free that adds a lot of value to somebody's life. So if you are, for example, a professional gardener, and you're trying to sell a gardening course, which is located at the bottom of your funnel, you need to attract people through some sort of free offer, like a free video training on how to build a garden in your backyard. And as somebody consumes that content, they start to see other ways of interacting with you, meaning they can pay you for a mini course, they can pay for a upgraded lesson or bonus or something like that. And funnels can be used to sell pretty much anything. We have funnels for our clients that are generating business consultations and phone calls for huge ticket items. And we have clients that are selling online courses and live challenges and stuff that is more digitally produced and delivered. So if you have a business and you have some semblance of online presence, a funnel is a way for you to generate leads and turn those leads into sales.
Mm-hmm. That's a great description. And what it makes me, just listening to you, especially in the beginning, talking about like people think that funnels are the kind of the holy grail of business.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like, it's sort of antithetical to the whole like the ethos around like if you build it, they will come. Like
Mhm.
is not is not the truth for funnels, right? So we need to
Right.
make sure that we have a good strategy in place. It's not as simple as, I know for sure I've had lots of broken funnels in the past, and we've had
Yep.
Sachin Patel was on, and he was talking about group programs. And I think it kind of, not that funnels are the same as group programs, but what it reminds me of is a lot of people build programs and without like knowing whether people are going to buy them or not. And so I kind of feel the same way about funnels, right? Is that your experience? You see a lot of people building funnels without really knowing or testing their audiences, right? And then going, it's
Oh,
broken, it's not
definitely.
working.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's several pieces to that comment. The first of which is a funnel is not the place to test the market viability of a product. You
Mhm.
want to actually market test a product before you build a whole funnel around it. Because what happens when you invest all this time and money into building out a lead generation system and then a sales page and a checkout system, merchant processing, all that stuff, only to have people visit that sales page that you spend so much time and money building and not have anybody buy it because you don't know if it's right. yes, it's really important to know if you're launching a new product, especially if you are an unknown brand and you don't have a large following or a large audience that's loyal to you. It's very important to market test it, to get beta participants and beta testers to give you testimonials, because I mean, social proof is a huge psychological element of sales pages. And the other piece that you mentioned is testing and the ability to have the right, you know, knowledge as to what's working and what's not working.
Mm.
And when we launch a new funnel, you have like multiple steps that you can have A/B tests or split tests on. And all that effort to improve the conversion rates of your landing page, of your ads, of your tripwire offer, whatever it is that's in your funnel, won't pay off if that product at the bottom of the funnel isn't market tested and isn't proven to be delivering value.
I love that. So we want to make sure that we're starting with that product and make sure that that's a viable product before building all this architecture around it.
Right.
So it's something that's the title of this presentation too. It's like, it's something that gives me the heebie-jeebies, and that's testing. I have been someone who is just in the past, like, so I'm not anti-testing, but I always want to just do something once and then hope
Yeah.
that it works, and um, I know that that's a huge part of this. So can you walk us through, like, what are some things we should be thinking about testing? How can we test? Like, what are the different
Mhm.
aspects of testing? Like I said, I think a lot of us want to just do something once. And if it doesn't work, we go, oh,
Mhm.
it's not working. Man, I invested all this time and money and it just doesn't work. So what should we think about when we think about testing?
Well, the first and most important piece to think about is that funnel building and funnel testing are two sides of the same coin. You
Mm.
can't have a successful funnel unless you are monitoring it and running tests. So tests are, in a very simple, description, tests are testing a funnel means trying two versions of the same page. Let's use a landing page for an example. If you have a webinar that you're promoting or a virtual summit and you want to get the highest conversion rate, the most leads from that page as possible, you'll have one version with let's say one headline and another version with a different headline, and everything else could be the same, but you're testing that headline. That is what's called the variable in the experiment. If you spend a week running that test, you will learn which version of that page performs better. And as a result, you'll have a higher performing landing page, and you'll be, if you're advertising, spending less money for every lead that you're generating versus if you weren't running that test in the first place. And in more cases than that, in fact, I would say in all cases, when you launch a funnel for the first time, it's not going to perform up to your expectations. That's just reality. I mean, when we launch a funnel, we know that we need to, number one, get this thing out to market so we can test it. Because a lot of people get caught up in analysis paralysis and they just try to make it perfect, when in reality they're changing things that they think are important, which aren't actually important to the marketplace. So it's important to just get the thing out there and start testing the funnel so that you can get some data back, because the ultimate deciders of whether or not your funnel works are the people in your audience, not you. That's called market research. So you need to get it out there and start running those split tests in order to know which of those headlines works, or if having a video or a picture works better, or if this particular checkout flow works better than this particular checkout flow. You need to know those things. The only way to know that is to actually test it with the people who would be buying from you. That's the best possible solution to the analysis paralysis that a lot of people get caught up in, because I've seen people spend months just like tweaking, changing things around on their funnel, and there has been zero traffic that has seen any pages in the funnel.
Yeah.
So it's really important to get it out there. The best and easiest way to run a split test is to use a software called ClickFunnels and to use their split testing function.
Yeah.
It is by far the simplest way to do it. You can click one button, duplicate your page, split the traffic 50-50, and you can get a result in a couple of days, depending on how many people are coming to your funnel. So
Great.
that's the easiest way to do it. And the biggest levers, the high leverage variables that you can test are the headlines. The headline of your page is like the billboard, for whatever it is that you're promoting or trying to sell or trying to give away in the form of a lead magnet. That's the first thing that we always test, and we're sort of like testing minds, and like we go crazy and try to do, we test 8 to 9 headlines at a time. But honestly, like if you can come up with one good variant to an existing headline that you have on your landing page or your sales page, just start there and you'll see a difference in the conversion rates if you really gave thought to that other version of the headline. And sometimes your tests fail. The hypothesis, which is I think this second headline will do better, fails. But that's okay. That is you learning. That's you knowing, okay, this original headline was better. Now, why was it better? What caused people to be more drawn in by that headline versus this other headline? Are we making that same mistake later in the copy? Are we making that same mistake in other steps of the funnel? So you can learn from those failures by just running that test. Even if it's a worse headline, there's something that you can learn and walk away with.
Right. And am I right in saying that we should only be testing one variable at a time? So we make sure, like, if we're just pick headlines and then move on to, because I'm sure a lot of people want to change a bunch of things and then test it. So they're changing headlines, they're changing buttons, they're changing font size.
Right.
Like, so we should just stick to one, right? And like, let them duke it out.
Not necessarily, actually. So there's something called variable cluster experimentation, and so this is just another way to run an A/B test. So if you have a page that there are a lot of things wrong with it, like if you have a consultant come in and say fix this and this and this and this and this, and they're all different things, it's the image, it's the video, it's the layout, it's the columns, then you can have another version of that page with all those changes made, split the traffic between them, and you'll figure out which one performs better. What you're going to learn out of that experiment is going to be less specific than what you would learn from a single variable test. So in a single variable test, you can look at the two headlines and say, what is different between these two headlines? And based on the results, you can derive an insight about what tactic that you used in between those two headlines and the tactic that won, you can apply to other areas of your funnel and other areas of your marketing. With variable cluster experimentation, you're making like large groups of changes at once. So the only insight is going to be, okay, well, this page performs better than this page. You can't really apply that learning in other places. Maybe you can take the general layout or design aesthetic that you added to the page and apply it elsewhere and test that. But you're not going to walk away with an applicable, scalable insight that you can bring into other areas of marketing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though, because at the end of the day, you have a better performing page, and that's what matters. So you can do large groups of changes. You can run tests that have these variable clusters, as we call them, it's a technical term. But those clusters of changes can be made on one page. Like we're going to be launching a 90-day challenge, and it's all centered around variable cluster experimentation, because sometimes you just need to move faster. Sometimes you're not like, okay, well, I don't want to just test the headline. I know that there's a lot more wrong with this page. So let's just do all the right things, bring all the best practices into this other version of the page or pages, and see how that does. And then based on that sort of like reset of your page, you can then zone in on specific variables that you can change, and then you'll start deriving more specific insights.
That's super cool. And it allows you, because I think a lot of teams are small, and it allows you to iterate more quickly than if you're just testing things one by one.
Right.
So I want you to weigh in on something that I have heard a ton of times. I want to hear what I'm sure you have data to back this up too, because I wouldn't expect anything less. Do ugly funnels convert better than beautifully designed funnels? I have heard ugly funnels convert. What's
a really good question.
I'm a
We actually had,
designer by trade, so it breaks my heart if it's
I know,
true that ugly funnels
trust
convert
me.
because I want things to look beautiful and brand it. Like that is my bread and butter. But man, do they convert better than beautifully designed pages?
The answer is it depends. In
Okay.
a lot of cases they do. In a lot of cases they don't. It just depends on, honestly, the ugly funnels are typically better copywritten
Mm,
because people end up spending more time focused on the words on the page than they are the design. And the lesson there is just focus. If you have to do an ugly funnel, do it if it means that you're going to have better copywriting.
mhm.
So we actually we launched an ugly funnel a couple of weeks ago for a client, and it performed very well. And it performed better than the designed version of that page. So it does work in some industries, like, and this was in the functional medicine industry,
Mm.
and like, there's a lot of jadedness out there, like the heavily designed stuff sometimes turns people away, or it makes it seem too corporate or something like that. And a good example of ugly funnels would be Frank Kern.
Mhm.
He is like a copywriting master. And Frank Kern is sort of like one of the internet marketing gurus guys and out there. He just has like big red and black headline at the top of the page and a video, and that's it. But once again, the focus is on the copywriting. When you don't have anything else to your aid, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I really need to make these words work.
Mhm.
Design can sometimes be used as a distraction and a crutch. Now we have an equal number of examples where added design components converted better than the absence of design. Adding mock-up images for an information product, or adding in proof, even like technical additions like proof notifications, that when somebody, for people
Yeah.
out with this product. Typography is a really big one. So it's a complicated answer, but ugly funnels do work. They're not always going to work. Designed funnels aren't always going to work compared to ugly funnels, but once again, that's the beauty of testing, because you can have two versions and figure out which one your audience prefers. It does really, really come down to the audience. Because I can tell you, in the B2B consulting world, an ugly funnel will be dismissed immediately. It won't work.
Mhm.
In the software world, an ugly funnel will not work. People are expecting clean lines, the nice gradient effects, and all
Yeah,
sorts
like
of stuff
sheep,
like that.
like I know that that's what I'm looking
Yes.
for, especially with a designer's eye. Like I'm on the opposite end. When I see an ugly funnel, I'm just like, I don't want to give my money to that business.
Yeah.
They're not
There's
taking
the
the
there's
time. They're not taking the
there's
time.
a trustworthiness issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like hackers, I get I'd like my spider sense goes off, and so I forget that ugly funnels do convert in different industries for different people too. So I like
Yes.
asking that question because it's
It comes down to the
out of
audience.
my wheelhouse of like, if it's not well designed, it's not, the time hasn't been put into it, the money hasn't been put into it, they're not
Yep.
legitimate, like, because those are the things that will put me off, just like, oh, they didn't take the time, they just put the cheapest template that you can get with a bright yellow button with a
Right.
like an arrow that's just like, buy this
Right. But the important point to remember is that opinion that you just shared is the opinion of the consumer. You are judging another company,
Mm,
and that is you're in the boat of people, as am I, who judges a company's legitimacy based on the amount of effort that they put into their design, because that reflects a lot of things: how you do one thing, how you do everything. There's a whole other boat of people out there who are not thinking that, who are like, I care about what words are on the page, and I don't care what it looks like, I just want it to solve my problem.
mhm.
So if you switch your perspective from a consumer to a seller or a business, right, you have to have the rational mind of thinking, there's a possibility that I might be thinking about my audience in a completely incorrect way, and I need to run this test to see if my audience is in one boat or the other. because that's the business owner's perspective to figure out like how people are going to respond. Now, other questions then come up. Well, it doesn't, an ugly funnel doesn't go along with our branding, or an ugly funnel isn't going to allow us to have the technical capabilities of our, process, onboarding process, whatever. So there are a lot of nuances with this question, but it also highlights the difference between what we consider important as consumers and what we should consider important as business owners.
I love that point. And there was something I wanted to just underline that you said a little while back that I wrote down, which is about when you're launching a funnel, it's not going to work the first time. It's not going to work to your level of, what you hope that it does. And I wanted to just underline that a couple times, because for me, that's a big takeaway.
Well, there's an expectation when somebody launches a funnel, like, oh, my funnel's going to solve all my problems, like we were talking about at the beginning of this.
I'm going to scale my business to multi-millions of dollars.
Exactly.
Passive income while I sleep.
I want to be in the 2 comma club, and I want to have tomorrow too. Like I don't want to wait. I want 100% margin on my digital sales, or 1,000% margin. We have all these expectations because we see all these people like launching funnels left and right, and they're like super successful, and they're spending $100,000 a day on ads, and we want to be in that space. But what they don't see is the road that was traveled by that person who's spending $100,000 a day on ads, trying to tweak and test the messaging on their pages to convert as highly as possible.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because it's like when you are at a point where you're spending, $5,000 a month, $20,000 a month on ads, those are proven funnels. Like, you're spending that money not because you hope that it's going to work. It's like those brands are spending that money because they are getting the return. At least that's my assumption, once you're at that level. But you know what?
Yeah, it is. It is. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I know that we're running out of time, but there's something that I'm curious about, because I know that you and your team have so much data and so many funnels. Are there things along the road when building a funnel that were surprising to you that they tested better? Like, are there things that you can think of? Like, I was really surprised that this color button, or if you put it in this order, like, are there things that have come up where you're just like, wow, that surprised my or ruined my hypothesis,
Yes, definitely. I've been proven wrong in my hypotheses plenty of times and been surprised by the results. There was one funnel that we launched a couple of months ago that we're still running, and it's very successful, but I was floored when we tested the checkout pages. We had one version of a checkout page that had all of the best practices there. It had the testimonials, it had the nice design, it had the guarantee, it didn't have too many form fields, like all of the things that we knew that a good checkout page should have, we put on this page. And then we had like a boilerplate checkout page in ClickFunnels with the company's logo up top, and that's it. And that one ended up severely outperforming the highly designed one. That's one of the ugly funnel examples. Again, it wasn't necessarily ugly, but it was boilerplate, like centered on the page. There was no testimonials on the left or the right, like nothing other than a simple credit card authorization form. And so that surprised me. I have a counterexample for when that element, because when we were working with a company that does monthly wine deliveries, it's called Dry Farm Wines, and they had a checkout page on their website. It's the same checkout page. Everybody uses this one checkout page through their e-commerce store, and it was ugly. It was not good. There were no testimonials. There was no logo. There was no branding. There was no guarantee language or anything like that. And so we said, okay, we're going to test adding in these elements. Put in the logo, add some branding, take out the branding from the checkout program that they were on, and add in testimonials, add in the happiness promise, their guarantee, and their checkout page conversion rate rose by 26%. as a result of those change, like tiny little change, like little levers that we're pulling that just said, okay, let's just add some elements here on this page, which reinforce the decision that somebody has already, somewhat made in their mind to purchase. They had Dave Asprey and they had JJ Virgin and they had other people in there with their headshots. They had a nice, well-designed promise and it looked beautiful. And so in a 26% increase on a checkout page on a site that big is a huge increase in revenue. Yeah. So that little change made a huge difference because a certain number of people that would have left ended up buying. Mm-hmm. So you never really know. Like that's a counterexample to the ugly funnel theory, because all of a sudden adding these beautiful elements of design have increased the performance of the page.
Yeah. Which kind of brings us sort of like circles us back again to the beginning and really the title of this presentation, which is about testing, but I'd also add in knowing your audience too. So knowing as deeply as you can and constantly like kind of iterating around who your audience is, what level of sophistication they have, what do they expect in terms of branding, what do they expect in terms of these extra design elements or not, and what works for one business is not going to work for the other. So I think that's, feels like the core of this message here, right? It's just testing and testing and testing.
And and as a marketer and as a business owner, you have to be agnostic to what you think will work.
Yes, that's a great
and completely open to any possibility of what your funnel could look like, because your audience, your customers will tell you what they want to see. Mm-hmm. You can't tell them what they should see. Yeah. There can't be that expectation around, well, this is what our checkout page should look like. Mm-hmm. Or this is what our checkout pages have always looked like, so we're not going to change anything. Like they work already. They're converting an X percentage. Why would anything else work? Yeah. There are people out there that think that way, but they're missing out on marginal increases in their revenue.
Yeah. And those, like you said, those marginal increases, 26% is not marginal, but even 2%, 5%, 10%, they start to add up over time. And if you make these incremental changes, you start playing with layout, you start testing an ugly funnel versus a well-designed one, and you start bumping those up, then the next thing you're bringing in a lot more money every year. So it is worth it. I'm saying this to myself too. I'm saying this as a reminder to myself that it is worth it to test and keep testing.
It's also a good habit to get into. Like when you're running a funnel that is not being tested, that happens to be successful, then you're on thin ice, because as soon as ad costs increase, or as soon as something in the market, your competitor comes in and your conversion rates drop, you're not actively testing. You're not in the mindset of, okay, we just need to add a variant. Let's run this test. Let's figure out how to tweak this. You're in the mindset of, oh my gosh, my business is burning to the ground and I have nothing that I can do about it. Like that's because you pigeonholed yourself into thinking that this is the way that things are. Yes. But you can launch a B variant and start getting some data and improving things.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you talked about. Very accessible for all of us, and a really good message around, empowering ourselves to test and to know our audiences. So Dan, how can people find out about you?
All of our stuff is at teamvivid.com. You can join our 90-day challenge. We've got a split test challenge that we've launched, and you can check out some of our stories and case studies and blog posts and helpful resources. You got a bunch of free stuff that you can download that will get you into that testing mindset and help get you on that journey.
Awesome. When does that split test start, or is that something that is running all the
Something time? That you can sign up at any time. We are going to be incorporating cohorts and start dates and everything into there as well, so you could learn about that all on the website.
That's awesome. Very geeky, but also awesome at this point. And very necessary. Yep. It's all about getting the coin too. So you start doing these.
That's right.
And it's let's get some more money in all of our pockets. So I'll put the link.
Trying to make it as simple as possible. Like, that's the key, because I know like the idea of testing, like you said earlier, could be intimidating to a lot of people. So it just boil it down to like.
For me, it brings up like the being back at school and having to like revise my papers over and over again. Like you have to, and I'm just like, no, the B plus. Like, that's fine.
Well, now you can think about it as every time you run a test, you make money.
Yes. See,
That's
that's an
that's
easier
the
way to
new
get
frame.
into it for sure. Dan, it's been awesome having you on here with us. Thank you so much for joining. And I'll put links and where people can find you down below the video.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here with us. I hope that in this session you learned something impactful and something powerful that's going to help transform your business. Before I leave, I just wanted to let you know that this session was sponsored by my business, Brand Better, branding, websites, funnels, and more for the wellness entrepreneur. If you want to learn more about my business, you can head over to brandbetter.online to find out more. And I also wanted to make sure to invite you to join me on Friday, the last day of the conference, July 3rd, for a half-day masterclass where I'm going to help you put this all together, the Wellness Business Accelerator, and make sure that we take all of the great concepts that you just learned in all of these amazing presentations with these great rockstar speakers and make a plan for your business. So it's going to be live and interactive. Check out your email to make sure what time it is on Friday, but it is going to be a live half-day masterclass. So I hope that you join me. I'd love to see you there. We're going to get some really good work done and make sure that we take all of these concepts and they're not just these, just sit and watch and take some notes and not actually employ any of these strategies. I want to make sure that these are real actionable things that you put in your business. So join me there on Friday. Go over and check out brandbetter.online to learn more about my business. And I'll see you on the next interview. Bye.